Hey, everybody, welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we'll be talking about a topic you've probably never heard of, COVID-19. I'm sure that hasn't been the bane of your existence for over a year now. Now, good news, everybody. The government of England has been issuing some lax deregulation. You may now, I guess, sleep at somebody's house overnight, and you know what that means, or do you? You're going to find out soon enough. But in this climate, do you want to? I mean, in this climate, they're also saying you can hug people again. This is being said by, I think, by the British government. I read a couple articles here today. You may hug people legally, but in this climate, you know, with the Me Too environment, why would you want to hug anybody? That's my question. Here to discuss this with me is my trusty co-host, a guy who hails from some undisclosed location in the United States with a beanie and a beard combo that shows he is ready to show the man and the powers that be that they may not tread on him. Please welcome actor Mark Pellegrino.
What's up, man?
Just on a roll with my intros, as you can see. So yeah, I mean, the British, they're releasing like actual statements saying like, you may hug people now, you may sleep at somebody's house. Like, isn't it just, I mean, they make Americans, they make like Biden seem like pretty easygoing by comparison, right? Biden tweeted out like, look, get the vaccine or wear a mask. And people, of course, are telling him to mind his own business and get bent, if I may be so crass. But I mean, compared to the British, I mean, the American government seems very laid back and libertarian by comparison. Imagine the government saying you may hug people. I haven't heard that.
No, I haven't heard that, but it's coming. Now, if you hug somebody in the UK before it was legal, I guess, would there be legal steps taken against you? Could you be arrested? Could you be fined for doing that kind of thing in public?
I imagine in England, they'll find a way to hold it against you. I actually saw an article here today that says the governor or the mayor of someplace in Florida. I think it's the governor of Florida currently. He's been one of the good guys on this during this whole pandemic, from what I can understand. And he is going to pardon people that did face legal consequences of breaking COVID rules. So that's Florida, though. I'm not sure what the situation is in other places. Certainly, I don't know what's happening in England. People in the chat room saying, I forgot to mention that I had COVID. I'm actually getting my second dose this Friday. So there's a good chance that I'll get sick again, and then lots of content for the show and for you guys to super chat. Please super chat your opinion if any of you have anything to add. What do you guys think? Is hugging okay? Should the government be telling us when it's okay to hug? We absolutely need your input on this.
Do you think there's anybody on the super chat, if they're objectivists at all, who think that the government should be telling us not to hug?
Well,
I mean, they could tell us, they could suggest to us that it's not a good idea to hug, but to make it illegal.
After some of the mental gymnastics I've seen some so-called objectivists make with regards to their love of Donald Trump and his shenanigans, it wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing self-identified objectivists that support that type of thing. But that's a digression, I suppose. Hugging is okay, but kissing should be illegal, says Stingy Student. What do you think of that? Thank you, Christopher Smith, for the Canadian $1.49. I think that about brings us to $1 regular American. Something public health emergency. This is the type of great content I expect from the internet. Now that's insanity, Mark. Insanity, says Christopher. So yeah, I mean, are you kind of tired of this topic? I was sort of burned out on it like a month into the pandemic, maybe not even. But obviously, it's in the news. It applies to people's lives. It keeps coming up. People want to hear about it. We definitely need to talk about it. But at this point, it's just like the government has violated rights so much in so many ways, and they were doing so before this pandemic in so many overt ways, that this pandemic stuff to me at this point just feels like, all right, just do your thing. Let's get this over with. And thank you, Marilyn, for the $2. She says, I never stopped hugging.
Well, unfortunately, there's no let's get over it. Once they've discovered a pathway like this, it's in stone now. Now they can refer to this anytime they want to to pull more of their shenanigans, right? So I think this is going to be a permanent visitation. COVID is with us forever, forever.
Yeah. So that's it. Basically, from now on, if I could sort of interpret what I think you're saying, anytime the government says, okay, everyone stay home today, or everyone stay home indefinitely as much as possible, they can basically do that because they have the precedent to basically declare emergency anytime there's any sort of virus, even if it is just the seasonal flu or terror threat, orange, whatever it happens to be. Or there's a killer on the loose. There's a fugitive we're chasing. Everyone stay home. Everyone's shut down your business. Everyone wear a mask. They know they can do that now. Is that what
That's
you're
right.
saying?
Yeah. COVID may take on different forms, like the various forms that you just suggested, but the precedent has been set for the government to close us down at whim. And the people have shown very little resistance to that. In fact, they've shown a capacity to publicly malign any resistance and try to belittle resistance and try to and then virtue signal their conformity to the government's status quo. So yeah, I think they tested the waters and they found them to be warm and inviting. And now we'll get these periodic emergencies that require the government to come in and do something. I think and the way they're trying to relieve us on the financial level is also setting precedents, right? What's the budget this year? It's 4 something trillion dollars, with $1.9 trillion going to quote unquote COVID relief. Is that an unprecedented number? I mean, we're not even surprised at this anymore. It took us 200 some odd years to get to $1 trillion of a deficit. Now we're almost at 30 trillion. We're not even thinking about it.
I mean, yeah, I remember there was a time when like a $1 trillion stimulus package was, I think it was Obama who was sending it out. And of course, Republicans were crying, this is the death of our children and grandchildren. And they were not wrong. But now today, it's just like anytime the government needs to solve a problem, quote unquote, it's just like, we'll throw $1 trillion at it. We'll print money, or we'll call something money. We'll just basically send out a bunch of checks to people that they can deposit.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help that the news keeps on writing this economic disaster that we've experienced over the last year and a half as a result that it's the result of the COVID pandemic. And it's not the result of the COVID pandemic. It's the political class shutting us down and trying to take control over every aspect of our lives in response to the COVID pandemic. So I think if people got into their heads that all the disasters that we're experiencing are the result of the government trying to save us from what they've already done to us, then maybe these precedents wouldn't be as important as they are, because it would just be a one-time deal. But I don't know. I don't have faith that that's the case.
I have no faith either, or any trust in what I'm seeing. It's absolutely insane. And also the one of the articles Razi sent us is about how now casual sex is basically been permitted by implication. So the government is saying like it's okay to go to someone else's house overnight. Basically, without spelling it out, they're saying it's okay to have sex with somebody you don't already live with. And we've got all these nonprofits out of England, or at least one particular charity is issuing advice saying, they said the best sex partner is yourself or someone you already live with. That's their advice to the world. We are being treated, we're infantilized, aren't we?
I mean, that's just absurd. Why aren't people laughing at that? Why is that even taken seriously today? Your best sex partner is yourself?
I mean,
somebody you're already living with. I mean, the absurdity. You can't write a script better than more absurd than that. I don't think the best Hollywood screenwriters could come up with something that imaginatively absurd.
And if they could, it wouldn't sell. Like nobody would take it. They would say this is too unbelievable to actually be living in a time when. To have the was it the CDC? I don't know who it was that issued a statement during the BLM protest saying it's not a risk to your health, to the spread of COVID, to go out and protest. Like the COVID virus, it will spread if you go out and shop or go out and go watch a sports game, but it will apparently not spread if you're protesting against police brutality or something like that. I mean yeah, I mean it's less on the face of it ridiculous, silly than the sexual remark, but equally absurd. It's out of idiocracy. Like, and you could not pitch this to Hollywood. You couldn't get anybody to take that script seriously, to say that people are so silly. But we're actually seeing it being said and done unironically. We've got a super chat from Maria with 699 pounds. She says, little known fact, if you kiss someone who's vaccinated, you get vaccinated too. I'm not sure if that is scientifically correct, and please, YouTube, do not shut us down for spreading such possible misinformation. But thank you for the super chat. Anyone else have other COVID advice or vaccine information? Feel free to super chat that over. And we do not necessarily stand by it as far as the powers that be are concerned. Now, I watched an episode last week. I guess it must have been Thursday. It was Nikos, the Dutch gentleman, I think he was, and you, Mark, talking about the sort of rise of liberty in Europe, if there is such a rise in people's mood. And I liked what you said. I mentioned the following day. I said, I liked what the American had to say on that episode. I think if I understood you, Mark, you were saying we need a revolution in ethics, and or else none of this political change will be long lasting or meaningful. And also, I remember you saying the Republicans have become anti-science, or they become pro-religion and therefore anti-science. And this was going back to Reagan. And as a result, today we have a culture where very few people who take science seriously would want to be part of the Republican Party. Yeah. And why do you think it is that people that take science seriously, they don't see the sort of economic and personal responsibility, personal liberty connotations of that approach? Like, why is it so many people are willing to go with big government, go with overarching government, basically go with all the absurdities, as long as it's not religious? Do you get what I'm sort of trying to ask?
Yeah. It's a shame that there isn't, a left-wing proponent of liberty. Well, because they all buy the same premises, right? They buy the collectivism. It's either collectivism by the authority of God or collectivism by the authority of government. I think there's a key to it somewhere in what Sam Harris noticed amongst his own academic friends and scientists. They all believe that ethics cannot be rationally acquired. They don't think the two mix. I don't understand how that's possible, but they think that you can apply your mind to the mechanical problems of the world, but you can't apply them to your inner content or to the dynamics of human life. And they sincerely believe that. And Sam is trying to bridge that gap in his own nihilistic way, and he's having a really difficult time. So it could be that the secularists are collectivists on the one hand and don't believe that reason is applicable to ethics. They think it's some kind of sentiment and or an issue of sentiment or ingrained intuition. I think many of these people think that our ethics is sort of instinctual, and their instincts take them to what the preponderance, the dominant culture is, which is collectivist. So if they just try to take it, they just secularize it and give us what the religionists gave us ages ago in secular form.
Yeah, and this sort of split between facts and values that has been a haunting philosophy for a very, very long time. I think we see it in various places. So like with finance too, like anytime you try to offer an objective take on money and finance so that we don't cause all this inflation and have the government printing a bunch of money or just sending out checks that can never truly be cashed, because they basically devalue the money that does exist. But then they answer you, well, what is value anyway? There's no such thing as objective value. It's just what we agree on. So if we agree something's valuable, it's valuable. So whether it's ethics or finance or anywhere else, you cannot get people to actually take values as something to be something serious and objective. which is going to cause all types of crazy problems in the world. Thank you, Mary Aline, for the $2. She says, she already said, I never stopped hugging. Then she adds for $2, I did not hug random strangers. Well, that's good, Mary Aline, in this climate. And then Mary Aline with $5 says, I'm not poor, but I just got a $1,400 stimulus payment. What the what? Well, thank you for sharing some of that with us, Mary Aline. And, see it as reparations. See it as reparations from the government for all the ways they have screwed you. Kiana with $5. Thank you for that super chat. Yeah, it's pretty it is pretty frustrating to see that, like, the people who they're so opposed to religion, and rightfully so, they will not sort of get behind liberty at a time like this when it's so desperately needed. But I suppose ultimately an ethical revolution is required, and that will require an understanding, a refined, renewed understanding of what values are. It ultimately all does begin with values. So,
well, I mean, look at what they were against. Look what the establishment press and the establishment politicians were against. They're against you going to stores. They're against you going to churches. They're against you fulfilling your own wishes, desires, and pursuing your own values. But if you were doing something community-minded, like going out and protesting in the name of the community, well, then that was fine. That's just the collectivist ethics writ large, right? You can't please yourself. That's not good. That's not justified. That doesn't justify you going out in the middle of a pandemic. But if you're out there fighting for the good of the community, then anything goes.
absolutely.
So it falls on us as objectivists, who are the only people out there who can, I think, articulate the message of individualism properly to counter these boneheads, because they're killing us, man.
Absolutely. And there was a strong destructive element to the protests, of the BLM protests, as much as they insisted they're here to help the downtrodden. I mean, I mentioned this on my solo episode I did about the Derek Chauvin verdict. More black guys are going to be found guilty because of the precedent set in that trial, meaning more black guys who otherwise may be acquitted or given a light sentence in the future will be found guilty because prosecutors now have a precedent from the way that Derek Chauvin was put on trial and given and had the book thrown at him the way he did. So, I mean, and obviously there was the destruction of property through the roof, through the stars, just absolutely insanely nihilistic streak that went with the BLM protests. And that, of course, is perfectly fine because it's not value driven. It's not selfish, right? Selfishness is the enemy, the way that people see the world.
Hey, you're gonna have to connect those dots for me on Clubhouse later on with Derek Chauvin.
Okay, absolutely. And I will say this about Sam Harris. Given the renewed tension, quote unquote, between Hamas and Israel, it was Sam Harris who, around 2014, I remember saying, he said, you can't call Hamas freedom fighters when they're fighting for the exact opposite of freedom. So you see someone like Sam Harris, who in so many ways drags his feet on the facts, values, and on various other topics. You see an atheist like him does a better job in this case at calling a spade versus someone like Prager and a lot of his friends in the conservative movement. When they want to defend Israel, they make all the worst arguments they possibly can. And it takes someone like Sam Harris to just say, you can't call Hamas freedom fighters. They're fighting for the exact opposite. And that is the way to look at a conflict, to say, look at what each side is fighting for. I just wanted to mention that about Sam Harris, since I brought him up in a negative way, and we discussed that negatively. Christopher with $1.49 Canadian, and Marilyn with $2 says BLM riots were safe from COVID. Yeah, that's exactly right, according to the experts that I've heard. Anyway,
yeah, and to jump quickly on what you just said, yeah, there is no such thing as one man's freedom fighter as another man's, or one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. As in the material world, the nature of something determines how it acts. If you're fighting for repression and oppression and a centralization of political power, you're not a freedom fighter. You're not a freedom fighter, no matter what, no matter how you couch it.
That's exactly right. And the Pragers of the world, they make terrorism as the primary point of this. So the fact that Hamas are using terrorism means that they're the bad guys. But in fact, if Hamas were Jeffersonian Democratic Republicans, if they wanted a constitutional republic that protects individual rights, and if Israel in this hypothetical were a theocracy, a dictatorship, then I would support Hamas firing rockets and acting belligerent to overthrow the occupying force. But those are not the facts. So you really need to look at what is each side fighting for. It's not just about what tactics they're using. Also, thank you, Regina, for the €3, pounds. I'm still a little bit unclear on what each one is. You want to jump over to, it's Euro, says Razi. You want to jump over to Clubhouse? Speaking of which, we can keep it going there. Thank you all for joining us. Coming up tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK time. This is big, guys. This is a game changer. 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Tuesday, the premiere of Iran Debates Europe. Doesn't get much cooler than that.
Oh, that's going to be good.
Yeah. Iran will debate Dr. Ashley Frawley on capitalism versus Marxism. So that's tomorrow here on the Ayn Rand Center UK. Thank you all for your support with Super Chat or by becoming Ayn Rand Center UK members. You definitely help this thing grow so we can pay for events like that. And we'll be able to pay for a lot more the more you guys support. Thank you for your support. And we'll be back here tomorrow for the Daily Objective, same time, to anticipate that debate and discuss how we think it's going to go. So join us there tomorrow and see you on Clubhouse here in just a moment. Thank you and goodbye.
Peace out.